Welcome to the Breakdown, episode 2. We made it, folks. It is January 15th, 2020. I am still your host. They did not fire me. Thankfully, hard to fire the guy that owns the company. Alchemist, I guess, could try to get me fired. We co-owners and all. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. All my nerves are gone. You know, last week, the intro, I was very nervous, very scared. You know, you're all friends. I'm talking to my friend Carrie, the camera operator, so it's all good. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about last week's episode. Thank you all very much. You gave us tons of good feedback, suggestions, all sorts of stuff about, you know, what didn't look good, what can be tweaked. We've taken a bunch of those suggestions, as you can probably see. If you watch the show today, you'll see some improvements. You know, some of our choices are design in nature, and some are, you know, just didn't get to fixing some stuff. So we've adjusted. We will continue to do that. Jason uses a quote from Adam Savage that says, "Perfection is the enemy of done," meaning like, if you're always striving for perfection, you're never going to get your project done, right? So we will constantly be tweaking the warehouse, tweaking our TVs in front, you know, my desk area. So work in progress forever, probably, right? But that's kind of the fun of this stuff. So again, thanks for watching. Great views on YouTube. We did debut Thorin's top 5 Counter-Strike players of 2019 last week. Great reception to that. I think that video is over 22,000 views on YouTube. So please check out our YouTube. You'll find it and all the Twitch stuff down below. I think the kids say smash the subscribe button. I think that still gets said. But anyway, go smash those buttons, like all that good stuff. But again, we're really happy with the first episode. Sneaky Big did not kick us out of their warehouse yet. So that's always a good sign. Now let's get right into my first topic. Team houses came up last week, right? And just to give you an idea of the show, I'm keeping an eye on news all week. The crew is, and I'm grabbing things that I want to talk about, right? So this is not the show that you're going to get all the latest scores, all the brackets, all the groups of whatever your favorite esport is. Tons of sites and shows dedicated to kind of that kind of content for esports and gaming. This is an opinion show, right? Where we grab news stories, we talk about them, right? So first one that popped into mind this week was team houses. Been a debate, a discussion, a conversation since they first started. Good and bad reasons, pros and cons. It's a very nuanced discussion. I tweeted the other day based on a Houston Outlaws news piece that broke, right? And what happened is Houston Outlaws have rented a mansion in the Woodlands area outside Houston, Texas, and that caused the HOA, and if you're at all familiar with what an HOA is, a homeowner association, it kind of caused the HOA to lose their mind a little bit, right? And basically, HOAs are like this little government body of your neighborhood, and they can get really picky real quick. When I bought my house now almost 20 years ago, specifically looked for a neighborhood that had no HOA, right? They tell you what color you can paint your house. Your grass needs to be cut a certain height. It gets really anal really quick, right? So they rented a large mansion. Remember, we talked about it last week. All the Overwatch teams, all the Call of Duty teams are moving into their kind of home regions. So the Outlaws rented a beautiful mansion in the Woodlands area, which is kind of an exclusive area outside Houston, $1 million, $2 million houses. And the idea behind it, you know, is kind of cool. You have a nice house, your players are there, your staff is there, and you make a lot of cool content, right? The problem is the homeowners association got a hold of it, and Action 5 News, I'm making that up, I think it was Channel 2 News in Houston, did a huge piece on it locally. Homeowner association up in arms, too many people, parking concerns, trash concerns, noise concerns, all this stuff, right? So they were in the midst of like deciding if they were going to kick the team out of the house and basically void the lease, right? So I tweeted this, and my tweet was basically kind of team houses, bad idea or really bad idea. Obviously, just throwing it out there, it's not a completely bad idea. There's lots of factors for a team owner and a set of players to decide if it's a bad idea for them or not. But it's not, at its core, a terrible idea. There's ways around it, right? So that started an online discussion, and Matt Rodriguez, who's the general manager of the Outlaws, kind of clarified some of my questions, right? And one of the big things that, you know, I was referencing was the idea that if you put a very stressful set of players in a team house, you know, their job is to compete, win, very stressful, and that's where they live and work and spend all their time, that can get real unhealthy real quick, right? And so I kind of thought that that's what they were doing. He clarified that for me and basically said the players are not living there It is going to be used for a training facility, so players have houses, apartments elsewhere. They would come to this big house not only to practice, eat all those good things, but also they make good content out of houses like this. It's nice, right? You have couches, you have pools. It is a nicer place to make some content. He then clarified, because then I asked, okay, are staff staying there? Like, kind of trying to figure out, well, why do you have a house if no one's living there? And not just, maybe apartments in an office complex. So then I thought, okay, the staff must be living there. Turns out nobody is living there. They're literally using it as kind of an office/practice facility. So it's nice, you furnish a house, you have more bathrooms, you have kitchens, you have stuff that maybe an office building isn't going to provide you so easily. And when you're filming stuff, it's much cooler, much more ambiance that you can do with a house versus an apartment or an office space. So he clarified all that. It's not a team house where everyone's jammed in and living and breathing together and people don't have personal space and all that. Didn't matter. Homeowner Station didn't care. They ended up leaving, right? So they have now found new digs and moved on from it. But it kind of brought up the overarching topic that I want to talk about of the pros and cons of team houses, because they're still a very big deal, right? I come from, obviously, the land of EG. We had a team house for StarCraft 2, a lair. We call it the EG lair right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we did it. Hey, wrong logo. That's the wrong logo.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, much better. Okay. So we had a lair here for our StarCraft 2 players. And we did it for several reasons. You get a bunch of guys together, and Anna Prosser ran the house. She was on a house mom. You can make great content with them, and they can help each other. Now, StarCraft's different. StarCraft is a 1v1 game. So it wasn't like they were teammates in the sense that they were practicing team strategies and all those things every day, but they could share stuff. The Zergs could share, the three races could share with each other, right? But where we got the idea and where StarCraft kind of got the idea was what you're seeing now is the South Korean team houses of StarCraft and StarCraft 2 days, right? I say houses, they're actually big apartments, right? This is the MVP house. This was shot several years ago by CSN, and it kind of shows you the living conditions of a typical South Korean team house. Now, keep in mind, us Western guys, these are the guys to beat, right? So you look at everything the South Koreans were doing in games like StarCraft 2 and StarCraft and going, why are they so good? What is it? What do they got going that we don't got going? And part of incredibly disciplined culture, jammed into team apartments. I mean, you can see the video here. It's not necessarily the greatest conditions. I think if you put Western players in this kind of environment, they would probably riot right away. That's just too many beds and too confined of a spot. But different cultures deal with it differently. You also have Seoul, South Korea, very, very expensive place, housing, period. So you're going to do apartments and not houses for one, and you're not going to do 7 apartments for everybody. Very expensive. And again, that's going on, almost 10 years ago now. But that's where the Western teams kind of got the notion even more so that houses is the way to go. And so we had one. The experience of it was, I would say, good and bad. Again, great for content. We made Genius, Genius is Falling out of that. Made a bunch of content with our players. It literally lets you show the players doing other stuff to the fans. You get that humanized aspect of your players, and they get to kind of understand these guys and gals, not just when they see them at tournament interviews, kind of a little behind the scenes of a lifestyle, right? What we quickly found out, though, is that it also creates a whole lot of angst and again, privacy issues and this guy is sloppy, this guy's always got dishes and, this guy, didn't do his cleaning this week. So it creates all these things that just wouldn't normally exist if everyone lived by themselves. And certainly we all know, just a few years later, how much more important mental health is to all of us, and having breaks and having peace and having quiet and a place to go reset. All of that has come up just in the world in general, like taking care of your mental health. So, I think if you would ask some of the EG guys, they would say kind of the same thing. It was cool for a while, it was neat and fun, but then, it gets really tedious and really old, and I want my own room, or I only want one roommate. So, you go both ways on it. Great for content, can be great to build some initial kind of team bonding. But again, these guys travel the world together. They go to tournaments all over the world. They fly all over the world. They already spend 20, hours a day together, 18 to 20 hours a day, them going and sleeping somewhere else at the end of the day does make more sense. But it is still very nuanced, right? So the modern take on it, again, this EG layer was during the StarCraft II era. The modern take has got even bigger and better. One of the prime examples is a lot of the Overwatch teams, when they moved to LA for that first season, they're all renting big mansions, right? We had a nice little, like 4 or 5 bedroom house, not a mansion, but so these houses in LA, they were all renting mansion-like, right? And here you can see some B-roll we're running of some of that stuff being set up. The Korean players are setting up their own team house. So for them, they probably went here and went, compared to the apartments we're used to, this is luxury living at its finest, right? And it is much better. You don't see, 10 beds in one room in these mansions. And again, for content, great stuff. League of Legends for Cloud9 has a house as well. Spitfire had a house. I think some of this is Fusion's B-roll of their house. So a lot of Overwatch teams do it. A lot of League of Legends teams in the LCS and LEC still do it. And it all comes down to kind of what works for your team. If you can get your 5 or 6 players to buy in, they understand what they're giving up and the benefits versus, the kind of the pros versus the cons of this, then having everyone live together can be not a problem at all, right? It can work out okay. But I think where you get in trouble is where it's kind of a forced, if you sign with my team, we have a team house and you have to move in. And we've seen that a couple times in Global Offensive, that players lived in a house, one player decided he didn't want to live in a house, he worked a deal with his contract that he didn't have to do it, but then you've got other players going, wait a minute, you made me move in the house, why does he not have to live in the house? So now you've created a little rift between your players, right? He gets to stay at home, but I got to live here, I don't want to live here either. So every team is trying to find kind of that balance of what works for them, right? I think, again, when it comes to EG and the lair, it worked really well for a while, and then I think it got really tiring for everybody after a while, You need that separation of work and life, right? Or you need to yourself as a team or as a set of players make that decision like, no, we love each other. We would be at John's apartment anyway, so give us a house, right? It can work. And so we got a couple different things and different takes on it. You've got teams still doing houses, and then we've got this, now that we have all this venture capital money and various investment money coming into the scene, we do have teams that are doing this separation themselves. We're going to give you apartments, and we're going to build a facility where you come and work, right? Not a 9-to-5 job for anybody, but again, here's your apartment, you share it with one guy, and you come here to work. A great example of this that Jason and I went to be able to see this last year was Complexity. As you most probably all know, Complexity was bought by the Dallas Cowboys group and kind of brought under that fold. The rebrand, we talked about that a little bit. And so the video you're seeing now is kind of a combination of Complexity's build out and what they did. And they've done this separation of church and state, right? So all the players get luxury apartments down the road, and they built, I'll use the word world class, and I'm not being facetious. It is a world-class office and training facility. It is in the same complex that the Dallas Cowboys world-class training and office facility is. It's called The Star. It's in Frisco, Texas, and it is badass. There's no doubt about it. Jason Lake and crew built a really nice facility, not only for them to work and run the business of Complexity, but a great place for their players to come and work every day. Several kind of built-out boot camp rooms that the players use, and again, really cool stuff. We're going to build some training rooms here in Arizona so we can kind of get some team business out here. We can do tournaments and stuff. So we're going to build some boot camp rooms out here eventually, and they're one of the guys that we looked at and went, these are some really good ideas. One of the really neat ideas is, it's typical boot camp room, so it's nice and long, enough for 6 guys to sit there, nice PCs, all that good stuff. But what Complexity did is they thought about the live stage environment and what it's like for players. Not only veteran players, but new players, right? So in their boot camp room, they have control of temperature, as obviously you would in any building, right? So they tend to make it cold, because when you're at a big event, it's cold, right? So you get used to using hand warmers, or figure out what kind of clothes you need to wear, because it gets cold on stage, right? In those events, AC gets cranky, and let alone in backstage of these areas. Not only that, they have the lights and the sound programmed so they can imitate chaotic shit in front of the players. Lights going off and on, loud sounds, crowd noises, people yelling and screaming, so they can test their comms. They can kind of get players used to the loudness of a stage. Right now, you can't mimic the 10,000 people in front of the kid, but if he can get used to like playing in that really loud environment and figuring out comms in that environment, it's just one little edge, right? One little extra thing that maybe helps that team the next time they sit on a stage, right? So really innovative, cool shit that they're doing there, right? And they got a whole bunch of other stuff going on, hand-eye tests and really, really cool stuff. It's the GameStop Performance Center, I believe is what it's called. Get a sponsor for these things, it makes it much more affordable. So a really, really neat idea, right? Not every team, obviously, is a complexity. They're not owned by the Cowboys. They don't have millions of dollars to build these things. So a lot of teams are also kind of finding this middle ground. Next team I want to talk about is Chaos. As we talked about last week, Chaos is kind of a sister company to us. The GG Group is one of the investors into Do Not Peak, and they're also the investment guys that own Chaos Esports Club. They're out of basically Atlanta, but their Counter-Strike team, unrelated to us, decided they were given some options. Where do you want to live? Where do you guys want to have your area? And they picked somewhere. They didn't want to live in LA, but they wanted to live close to LA, so they were a quick flight to any events in LA, but they wanted to be West Coast for West Coast Counter-Strike servers, right? Because obviously they play every night online. So they chose Scottsdale, South Scottsdale, kind of Tempe area. And what Chaos, because the first thing I said is like, wait, please tell me you all are not getting a goddamn team house, please, right? And they're not. And Josh, their leader, Steele, is married, so those kind of things aren't conducive. So they're doing kind of this hybrid. They found an apartment complex. They all have apartments, 2 guys to a 2-bedroom, so everybody gets their own room, nice and private. You got a roommate in a 2-bedroom, nothing wrong with that. So you got plenty of places to go by yourself. And then they've taken another apartment, and that's the office for that crew, because there'll be content guys here and a manager here, and that's also where their training setup is, right? So they get up in their own place, they shower, they do their own shit, they walk down the hallway, and they go to work, right? And they then go to another apartment, and they do their business. So again, nice separation, but really close. They're not commuting 20 minutes away, having to worry about Ubers or that stuff. So that's a nice balance, and obviously much more cost-effective for a company like Chaos that doesn't have complexities money to build this, multi-million-dollar facility. Again, as I've said, many, many ways to skin this cat. I also reached out. I wanted one more opinion on some stuff, right? Because my opinion is mine and my experiences are mine, and I haven't ran a team for a while. So I reached out to Carlos from G2, Ocelot, ex-play. Hey, wrong logo. God damn it, you guys. Jason, there we go.
Dropping the ball today.
Yeah, and again, that's a good rebrand. That's a good rebrand. Forgot about them last week. That's a good rebrand. Gamers 2 to G2. Anyway, so I reached out to Carlos because very popular team, many divisions, and so I wanted to see maybe how they did it, right? League of Legends, very popular team. Didn't win Worlds, got really close. So I asked him, and he sent me a nice video. We're not going to play the video, shaky phone camera, but it was easier for him to kind of answer my questions as he was walking down the street. But he kind of answered some questions for me because I was like, how do you do it? Are you guys, I know that they've built a brand new facility or moved into a new facility in Berlin where their offices are. And he said, it's a combination for us. He said, it's absolutely a combination, and we talked to each roster about it. And I asked specifically about League of Legends. And his League of Legends team had a choice, and they wanted to live together. He said, they're all really good mates. They don't worry about, like, offending each other and pissing each other off. Like, they all know each other really well. And they thought for them, a team house environment would be better. So that's what he gave him. And he said, but most of my other teams opted the other way. Separate housing, come to the office to train, right? So it's kind of every owner has to kind of gauge every roster, every player. I think where it doesn't work is when you force it. Oh no, we've recruited you, we've got a house, here's your bedroom, you're sharing with this guy, right? That's probably where it goes south. If you don't really want to ever be there in the first place, you're really going to have a hard time liking that scenario. So give him the options, right? And that's what he did. And obviously his League of Legends team, very successful. Yes, they got spanked in the final, but they crushed everybody getting there. So for them, it worked, right? And you can't say they were in a house and that's why they did so well, but it all adds up to better performance on your team. So I thought that was kind of neat that he plays it by ear, he figures out his rosters, and one of the other things he said is like, Scott, what I noticed is that the younger players who are maybe coming straight from living with their parents and haven't lived on their own, didn't go to college, didn't already have that freedom, are more apt to like that kind of gradual step into independence, right? Never done their laundry before, never had to wash a dish. We had that with EG. Anna and I used to giggle, like, we're going to turn these people into adults at the same time that they're training, right? Teaching them how dishwashers work and how you do your laundry, and you got to go grocery shopping, because a kid at home doesn't go grocery shopping. Mom and dad do that for them generally. So that was kind of Carlos's take, is like the younger people lean more into this kind of more constructed, disciplined environment, and as they get older, girlfriends, different things in life, outside gaming friends that they want to spend time with and need an apartment to entertain, they start leaning towards wanting their own place. So again, just thought that was kind of a really neat take on it. Very nuanced discussion, like I said at the beginning, no right answer, no wrong answer. And obviously as you get down into tier 2 and tier 3 teams, it also becomes a free rent situation when you're kind of negotiating with a player. Tier 1 Counter-Strike players, tier 1 League of Legends, even tier 1 Overwatch, they don't need free rent. They all get paid really well. But a young kid who might just make a little bit of money in salary, you're also going to give me free housing, pay for my food, all that good shit. That adds to like a selling point, right? But you just got to be careful who you jam in the houses. But I think eventually houses will probably go away and will lean more towards this kind of separation. But I don't think they'll disappear entirely. It really depends on the culture of the team, and how the team owner and the players want to do it. But again, I think it's something we'll always keep an eye on. But I want to talk about it because while the Houston thing didn't end up being a nightmare, again, all jammed in there, it kind of spurred me wanting to talk about the topic. So that's team houses. We're going to move on to something that's absolutely near and dear to my heart, and not only that, really, really cool that we all do, right? And it's gamers raising money for charity. And again, it's usually one thing that fires off the news that gets me to want to talk about a bigger topic, right? So this is just some charities that are raising money, right? You've got Operation Supply Drop. They raise money for our military folks overseas, send them games, send them consoles, send them all sorts of stuff. Tiltify is a big organizer of all these kind of things. They do a lot of charity stuff. The one is near and dear to my heart right over here, in front of the TV, Gamers Outreach. They make medical grade carts, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, that you roll into hospitals so sick kids can play video games. You've got Child's Play up there. You've got, what's the other one? I can't read that. GDQ we're going to talk about later. And then I'm missing one. I have a heart. St. Jude is on there. So again, and this is just a few we grabbed, right? And right now, I imagine right now on Twitch, several people are streaming to raise money for Australia and the brush fires, right? We collectively, all of you watching at home, whether you're just supporting, whether you follow one of these things, whether you donate, we're always doing good, right? And the reason I want to talk about this is, as you all know, we still have this stereotypical belief for not all mainstream, but a lot of mainstream, that we're all in the basements, we don't shower, we eat shitty food, and in some regards, every time there's a school shooting, it's video games' fault, right? It's a very negative thing we do as our hobby, right? Do something real with your life. Get off the couch. How about we raise millions and millions of dollars for good causes every year, right? Because we do. So it kind of pisses me off that we don't get the love. We tend to get the negativity of our profession or our hobby, gaming, esports, etc. So this is a great stat. And they're still tabulating really what this is, but it's at least this, right? So since 2012, Twitch streamers and that platform alone have raised over $100 million for various charities. $100 million fucking dollars, right? Insane stuff. And I asked Marcus, they're still tabulating the numbers. He thinks it's even higher now because these last couple years have been like 20 million, 30 million each year. Like every year, like records are broken on how much. And that's just one platform. That's just Twitch. It's not the other streaming platforms. It's not YouTube. It's not all the other ways that you can reach into communities. So I always like to hop on this soapbox because, again, I'm just pissed off that every time a news report comes out, it puts us in a bad light. And yeah, we have concerns to worry about. Yeah, maybe, you have to watch your kids so that they're doing their homework and not just playing video games. But again, we do so much goddamn good for the world. And it still blows my mind that if you're going to talk about the bad stuff about our world, can you at least throw this in once in a while and go, on the other side of it, here's what they also do. For people they don't know, people they've never heard of. And I want to give a shout out to one particular guy. I don't know him. I watched him. Dr. Lupo is a goddamn saint, for lack of a better word. This man individually has raised millions and millions and millions of dollars himself this year, right? Hashtag fuck cancer is what he always says. And this guy, again, just a prolific use of his platform to raise money. He dips into his community on a very regular basis to raise money for all sorts of causes. And we've got a little clip of him doing some stuff too. And again, we're going to let you listen to it because he talks to his chat. But again, this guy, everyone should look to what this guy has done with his power and fame, right? Because again, as he's gotten more popular, it's not like he's sitting on the sidelines going, yeah, I made it. You guys are on your own. He is using that platform every goddamn day to shout out causes, to raise money himself, telethon style stuff. And it's just absolutely, it's awe-inspiring, right? We should all try to emulate Dr. Lupo in that sense, right? Use your power for good, right? Even though I'm going to Star Wars and I'm going to get a dark side lightsaber. Use your power for good. And let's roll that Lupo clip if you guys are ready for it. I hate doing that to production. I think they are. But let's watch Lupo as he closes out of a couple of his segments.
To Lauren, the $200, we're almost at $700K total for this 4-hour block. Are you kidding me? Though with the 1,000 and anonymous 100, it is ridiculous how fast these are coming in. I bet the guys that wrote the code for these alerts are scrambling to make sure that this thing does not explode. Tiltify might be on fire, but you can continue to donate to St. Jude. It doesn't matter what race, what creed, what religion. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, where you come from. St. Jude helps every single person. Joe, thank you for your 50. F cancer, dude. Herbie Bourbon, cheers watching the donations flying. You and me both, man. I know there's people that can't donate. I know there's people that can't be a part of this monetarily, but thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for making me the last block of this thing and absolutely destroying anything that I thought we could do. $919,000. Chat, I love you to death. I'm gonna sit here in my chair and cry for a little bit. I'll see you guys later. Wait, no, it's fine. Chat, it's fine. I didn't see it because I was busy shaming Baru for a typo. Emerald Brew with the $50,000. $50,000. Said I messed up the hashtag, so I guess I need to do $2 per like. It's only fair. I want to make this community what it is. You literally saved kids' lives, Loop. Hope you're aware of that. Because the work you've done, some family still gets to tuck their baby in at night. Chad, look at us. Chad, look at us. Who'd have thought? Not me. Bro, are you kidding me?
What's that?
Are y'all for real? I'm gonna read this verbatim, so everybody understands. On behalf of Twitch and myself and St. Jude, I very officially say, fuck cancer. Hey, little Billy earlier that said that we wouldn't do $2 million. Look at me now.
Dr. Lupo, we are mere humans. We are not worthy of you, sir. We are not worthy. Amazing. Let that inspire you. Even if you can't donate yourself to any of these causes, just go watch a channel, participate, like them, follow them. If you can donate, great. It's just again, the idea is like let's destroy this stigma that video game players and people in our industry are this negative stereotype of bad stuff. Let's just keep destroying it, right? And again, Dr. Lupo, you're a god among men. Fuck cancer. Hashtag fuck cancer. We'll get to that a little later in the show. Fuck cancer. I'll just say that right there. If you know, you know. Fuck cancer. So, Scott, that's great. You're talking about Dr. Lupo. What the fuck do you do for charity? Well, I'll tell you what I do for charity, chat. I am actively involved in Gamers Outreach. I'm on their advisory board. I have been for several years. I'm one of the hosts of their Gamers for Giving event every year in Michigan. And I've known Zach Weigel, who started this when he was in high school for a very long time, when he was doing event logistics for Craig Levine back in the day, and I'd see him at trade shows and different events. And Zach came up with the idea years ago. Here's a picture of me. And they build, the charity raises money to build these carts. And what this cart is a freestanding medical grade cart. Medical grade meaning you can use it in hospitals, it's sterilizable, all those kind of things. And the cart itself either has an Xbox or a PlayStation in it, right? Not really gonna put a PC in it. And a sick kid in the hospital, stuck there for chemo or whatever reason, can reserve the cart and the nurse will roll it into his room. He can play video games with his friends that are visiting or online with his friends at home. And it's just, the idea of kids in hospitals is just a horrific thing, right? So you want to do whatever you can for a kid in a hospital to normalize his life. So if a kid every day comes home from school and normally plays a couple hours of Fortnite, Rocket League, whatever game he's playing, right? And then you jam him in a hospital for 3 weeks. He's already in a hospital. It's a foreign environment. Hospitals are scary as fuck for an adult, let alone a kid. So if he can still hop on and play that Rocket League with his friends and talk to them on comms, at least a little bit of his life is normalized, right? And, you know, we're in hospitals all over the country and more starting in Europe. I think there's a couple in Ireland right now that Terrorizer raised money for. And the really cool thing about it, and most of these charities, is the lion's share of all money raised goes right to these charities, right? There's also this nebulous thing that I give to the Red Cross. How much from the Red Cross really goes to the people that need it? The reason I fell in love with this and started fundraising myself, I raised money and raised $15,000 to put 3 carts in the Phoenix Children's Hospital here in town, right? And lots of children's hospitals all over the country, and they generally will have some sort of game room, you know, where the kids can all gather, play board games or play video games. They have big TVs and stuff. But the problem is a lot of these kids are so sick they can't even leave their room, right? They're quarantined or they're weak. So the carts come in that sense. You can roll the games to the kids. They play with their dads, their sisters, their brothers. And what I liked about Zach's idea was that it was very cut and dry. You raise X amount of money, that's 1 cart, and you then, as the guy that raised the money, or gal, picks where it goes, right? You could say, Zach, spend it wherever you want, send the carts wherever you think you need. But if you want, you could say, yep, I raised enough for 2 carts. I want them in my local children's hospital. Can you check with that hospital and see if they'll take a cart? And so Phoenix Children's has now like 10 of these. Lindsay Elise, I think, has 7 or 8 in the building because she's a big streamer. It's one of her main charities. So it's really cool because I then went to the hospital, met the nurses, met some of the kids, and delivered the cart. So it's not just like I'm writing a check. Aren't I a great guy? Don't I feel good? You can kind of see it in action, right? And it's just, again, one of the many, many awesome causes. Talking about mainstream kind of acceptance. And this is where it gets cool, right? I know I'm talking about, we get a lot of negative stereotypes. Our boy Zach was nominated CNN Hero of the Year, right? He made the cut to be one of the top 10. And it's a big thing CNN does every year, and these are global finalists, you know, people figuring out water issues and women's healthcare issues all around the world, all sorts of great causes. Every one of these 10 heroes, fantastic in their own right with what they were raising money for, but our boy Zach got nominated, right? Didn't win it the final night, but he was on the show. He gave a speech because they broadcast on CNN. It's a big whoop-to-do. Anderson Cooper and Kelly Ripa hosted it. So that was like some validation, right? And obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted that vote every goddamn day. Vote for Zach, vote for Zach, vote for Zach, right? Because that's the kind of exposure we need the mainstream to see. That this is what we also do with our power, right? And you know, I wish he would have won, but awesome stuff that Zach got that spotlight. And the funny thing about Zach's charity in the first place, he had organized, how it all started is he organized a charity, not a charity, he organized just he's a Halo kid, right? And his local school, him and his mates, organized a Halo LAN when he was in high school. And they got the principal of the school said, yes, you can use our multi-purpose room, your cafeteria, to have that on a Saturday, just have some chaperones, how's parking gonna work? And they put flyers around, they got a bunch of people involved. Again, high school kids, right? And then the local police department, sheriff or an officer, got wind of it, had the mindset that video games, kids, violence, bad thing. And if you Google Jack Thompson, he was very, very anti-video game, it causes violence, and this is all during that time. This is a while ago. And so the cop got the event, went to the school district, said, this is happening in your school, the video games cause violence. You really shouldn't be condoning it on school grounds. So they pulled the plug to Zach. They said, Zach, you can't do it on school grounds, and like a week before the goddamn event, right? Not to be deterred, young Zach Weigel and his friends said, fuck it. He probably didn't say fuck it. And they went and found a different place. They went to his parents' house, and they did it in the basement, I think was the very first one. So they had a huge LAN party, and then even back then he went, you know what? We're going to do a raffle, we're going to raise money at this LAN, and we're going to give it to Mott's Children's Hospital, which is a local children's hospital in Michigan where he lives. And that started Gamers Outreach. The idea like, fuck you authority, fuck you people that don't know what we're all about, we're going to show you what we're all about. And every year it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And that turned into the idea of just donating to Mott's Children's Hospital, turned into Mott's saying, hey, we could use a gaming cart kind of thing, right? We've got this little playroom, and that got Zach's brain spinning, and that's where the Gamer Outreach carts came from, go-karts, if you will. So, again, just wanted to spotlight him specifically because that's near and dear to me. We at Do Not Peak will be fundraising for Gamers Outreach over the years. That'll be something we lean into heavy. So, really, really cool stuff. Now, let me get to kind of the topic that brought the whole conversation again to my mind, and that's last week and Gamers Done Quick. Right? Again, another thing that's been going on for quite a while. Scott, what's Gamers Done Quick? Gamers Done Quick is speedrunners and all sorts of gamers that do that kind of gaming, breaking records, speedrunning, dual speedrunning challenges, all sorts of stuff. And they, every year, do this big week-long LAN event, broadcast, audience, tons of people participating in tons of games, and they raise money for charity every year. They do it twice a year. They do Gamers Done Quick and Summer Games Done Quick. Games Done Quick, not Gamers Done Quick. Games Done Quick. Gamers are never done quick. Games Done Quick. Thank you, Alchemist. This last one they did, $3.1 million over a week, right? So they'll do one this summer. They'll probably break that record. They're always breaking records, right? So they could do 10 million in a year, just one charity organization. And again, just one of many Games Done Quick. Really, really, really cool stuff. And again, really entertaining stuff. If you've never tuned into one, like, I played this game, Mike Tyson Punch-Out, right? And all different games they're speed running, right? Really, really cool stuff. Another cool initiative. Really, actually, top-notch production value because of all the different games they have to bring in, all the different overlays, all the different kind of information they put on these screens. Not an easy thing to do from a production level whatsoever. Uh-oh, blue screen happened. So really, really neat stuff. And again, just another example of how we are not just this negative stereotype that we're made out to be often by the politicians and the mainstream media. Really, really good. So shout out to all you guys. If I didn't mention your charity, I might not know about it or I didn't get time to do it. But again, right now, people are fundraising for Australia, right? It's always something. And I think that's just a really, really cool thing. And I'm not always going to be angry. I'm not always going to be mad at something, right? This is a positive, passionate thing, right? So, shout out to all you guys and gals that are out there raising money for good causes. I just think it really helps elevate our industry. And again, kind of goes against that negative stereotype a little bit. So next thing I want to just briefly chat about, we're going to get into some Counter-Strike a little later after the break, but I want to just give some love to the TLDR guys. And if you don't know what TLDR is, it's a newsletter that hits your inbox twice a week, Counter-Strike specific right now. Maybe these guys will branch out. And Jacob, Elliot, and Philip all have real jobs in esports. They do a variety of things, and they've done a variety of things in esports. But they decided, you know what was missing is a cheeky, snarky, give you the news, though, at the same time, not a website, not a show, a newsletter. It's nice and easy. You sign up for it, it shows up in your inbox. And it is snarky as fuck, man. So shout out to these guys. Again, I always want to try to point out additive content in the scene. We're trying to be additive, and I want to always try to shine a spotlight on other people that are being additive, right? That doesn't compete with anyone. They're not trying to be a tournament organizer. It's an additive piece of content for you guys out there. And again, easy to subscribe. Just give me your email address. Twice a week, you get some really snarky, funny news, right? Clips, videos. It's got a sense of humor to it. So if you're looking for like really buttoned up news, not the place to get it. But again, I just think it's really, really funny. I'm enjoying it. We will maybe even eventually start pulling some stories out of that if I find it snarky enough that it's worth highlighting the shit they write, because very comedic, very comedic. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will definitely be getting into some Counter-Strike news. And again, just want to remind you, I'm not talking about rosters. I'm not talking about, upcoming tournaments or who won what tournament, unless it's a major or the internationals and that kind of stuff. But also want to get your questions in. Remember, we are doing questions at the end of every show. So be right back after the break, get into some Counter-Strike news. All right, welcome back to episode 2 of The Breakdown. We're halfway through the day. Let's talk about Counter-Strike Go. Probably going to talk about Counter-Strike one way or another, probably every week. So this week, a couple things I want to touch on is, because I mentioned it last week, we set a new player record weekend before last. Guess what we did last weekend, boys and girls? We set another one. Nothing is more important to an esport than having a growing or at least stagnant, not declining player base. Look at this shit. Highest number since 2016. And every weekend, we keep to be kind of breaking the record again, right? That's very healthy for my favorite game. And I think Jason's favorite game. And Anthony's favorite game. Not Imagine's favorite game. Daniel likes Dota. Tyler, I'm not sure what you like up there. But anyway, a lot of us are very happy to see this continuing to grow up. Now, Scott, why is it growing? Well, yeah, Tyler's Counter-Strike, great. New operation. So, right, new people coming or old people coming to check that out. It is free to play, so that will continue to get new people to try it at least. We all know that play it can get really frustrating, free or not. This game can get really frustrating, so you might play it and then leave. But again, we got people coming to check it out. So hopefully that keeps slowly growing. Obviously, Asia as a region is opened up. They're not included in, these are Steam numbers, so they have their own version of Steam, et cetera, so they don't land, like if you added Chinese numbers to this alone, I don't even know how much more it would be. So really, really cool stuff. That just kind of gives you the idea that the game is healthy, right? An unhealthy game is going to have a really hard time being a healthy esport. League of Legends is the most popular video game, leads to why, as an esport, it is so well watched too, right? They kind of go hand in hand. It's like regulars in your restaurant. If you don't have any regulars that come into your restaurants on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, your Friday, Saturday crowd that comes in once in a while ain't going to keep you open, right? You need your regulars. So just always cool to see, right? If you go back before Global Offensive, and even the first year, 6 months of Global Offensive, we were all like, our game is fucked. It was nice. Counter-Strike had a nice run.
Chinese numbers is included.
Really? I thought they had their own version of Steam. Okay, interesting. Chat, you could be right. I could be wrong on that. Thank you, Jason. I think you all heard Jason, too. Sometimes I don't know if Jason's telling me or he's telling you all.
Jason isn't real.
He's supposed to use a code word before he talks to you all. He didn't.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it anyway.
C9
Jason, get your ass. Let me need to talk to Jason. Jason, where are you? No, you're not gonna do it for me. See, I love.
What are you talking about?
Hey, buddy, how are you? I just wanted to give you.
Doing good.
Yeah. All right, that's it.
DJ.
Yeah. So again, our game is doing well, right? It's a good barometer for an esport, right? They don't necessarily go perfectly hand in hand, but it's always something to look at, right? I think the more, it makes sense, right? The more popular your game is, the more people might watch it as an esport. It doesn't mean they're all going to watch it, but it always helps. So really, really cool stuff. Fingers crossed, praying, all those things, that number continues to grow and we don't hit some sort of crazy wall and then we drop again, because that's always a scary sign. Another thing that I want to talk about, we talked a lot about Overwatch League last week and talent leaving and the various reasons they were leaving. A couple more have said they're leaving. Malik has said this week that he is not returning. He was a host and interviewer for them. But this is the one I want to talk about, our boy Semler. Our boy Semler. Now, we don't know, what we don't know is if he's coming back to Global Offensive. He dipped his toe in last year. He did a few little events and said hi to us at a couple of events and did a little bit of shoutcasting, if you will. What we do know is he said he's not returning to Overwatch League. So we're all, hence the meme. Does that mean he's coming home? Is he looking back at Counter-Strike? Obviously, I love August. I hope he comes back. In his departure, obviously, well, we've got people that kind of shifted roles. Moses is now kind of the pairing casting partner of Anders. It used to be Anders and Semler. But Anders and Semler are the guys that put this game on our back in that first couple of years when we were all like, God, this game's kind of shit, Nip TV, right, on fire. And then he kind of got burnt out and wanted to try something different, which talent often wants to do. You get pigeonholed, you get burned out if you're a one-game kind of guy. So he went to play in Overwatch League, right? Well, I'm glad I think he might be coming back, unless he's going to do something outside the industry. I certainly hope he brings his talents back to Global Offensive. I hope he does. Hopefully we'll get some announcements for him, or when we start seeing announcements from various events, we just, He's part in the talent lineup right now. Who he casts with and how they do all that, they'll have to all figure out. But just really nice to see him back. Like it's like a nice warm pair of slippers having Semler back around. So if you're watching, I certainly hope you do come back to us. Incredibly talented guy. So I definitely want his hype back. Another thing I want to talk about, moving on from that, is HalfLifeTV.org. Perhaps you're aware of them. Great website for all your Half-Life news, all your Counter-Strike news. And I guess apparently when I called it Half-Life TV last week, people were like, oh, fuck, that's what it stands for? Yeah, that's what it stands for, HLTV, Half-Life TV. So they're in the midst of their top 20 players of 2019 as well. You know, we had Thorin do one, again, on our YouTube. If you want to check it out, we made a nice video to accompany his talking about each player, but they're knee-deep in there. They do this every year, right? I think they're on 7 right now, which is NAF. I guess today they'd probably be announcing one. Maybe they announced one during the show. But I think this is also really neat, right? It chronicles via their criteria and how they want to decide who the top 20 players are every year. So again, check them out. They do really nice bios about each player and kind of break down why, in their minds, that player is worthy. You know, here's NAF's right here, right? And just really cool. It gives you some nice, at least it quantifies why that set of judges, if you will, puts them, you know, that player at that ranking. And they do a few outside the top 20 as well. But again, just a nice thing that everybody in our community looks forward to. So as always, shout out to you guys at HLTV for, again, being the home of Counter-Strike news and content. That's where you go if you want to read about rosters, you want to read about match scores, if you want to figure out, you know, what's going on in our world. They are the de facto site, and certainly a lot of other esports communities could look at their website and, you know, build something like that for their community. Obviously, Liquipedia does a great job for us as well. We as Counter-Strikers have plenty of resources, right? Not all esports have that. So again, always like to give them some love. Great stuff. Been a fan of them for a very long time. I come from the days when they actually were a Half-Life TV provider. Their name comes from the fact that they started as a service, right? When we had Got Frag, they were not a news source. They were where you went to request and get a Half-Life TV server, a spectator server, if you will, Go TV now, in your match, right? You would go, you'd fill out a form, they'd give you an IP, they'd fire up a server, boom, now you got a spectator tool, right? They quickly started adding to that, right? But so their origin story is a little different. They didn't start as a news organization. Now they are the preeminent Counter-Strike one. So really, really cool stuff there. And then also, again, in the sense of giving love to Counter-Strike in this section, I didn't mention it last week, and I kind of kicked myself all week for it because I mentioned Duncan a lot. Another great resource, which again, I think is more like this kind of show, it's opinion-based news, is Return of By the Numbers that Richard Lewis and Thorin Shields do, Duncan and Richard, right? Long-standing show, used to be called By the Numbers, but now legally they lost that name, so it's the return of By the Numbers. It returned a long time ago. And again, that's a mix of rosters, results, tournament stuff, gossip, drama, but it's all through the lens of Richard and Duncan, right? Very outspoken, obviously. So very heavy on the opinion side of that show. But you're also going to get a lot of facts that back up their thought process, right? Try to watch it every week, either live or VOD, so shout out to you guys. Again, another good resource. Now, I'm going to shift gears. We're going to get away from Counter-Strike. That is your Counter-Strike news for the week. We will always try to catch you up on stuff that I feel I want to point out. Big news will start to drop in our world. DK is reporting again. Shout out to you, DK. He's reporting on a lot of this different league stuff and what ESL is doing with Pro Tour and Pro League and what B-Site might be doing and what other people are doing. So he's another resource that you want to check out in the written form. And then he also streams, answers questions on his stream, does a mailbag kind of thing. So again, another good, we're so goddamn spoiled in Counter-Strike. We really are. For whatever kind of content you want to find for Counter-Strike, you're going to find. So love that shit. Now I'm going to shift gears. This story, Jason pointed this out to me because it came through his Twitter feed yesterday, or day before actually. And it's the gamification of Taekwondo, right? And we're going to play a video for you and we're going to walk you through it. But basically what it comes down to, I don't know much about the sport of Taekwondo. I don't. I'm not going to profess to. But what they have done is they're starting to experiment with this idea of they have these vests, right? And this tweet kind of explains it. They have what is called these 2020 armor vests they all wear now, right? And the vests track hits, right? If you hit your target, you get points. Taekwondo is a point-based sport, right? Well, now they've taken these vests, and not only do they track the hit itself, but the intensity of the hit. And if you look in this video, they've mapped Street Fighter-esque health bars to it. So I kick you in the chest, really hard, you lose a bunch of your health, and so now you're a spectator right there in front of you. It's not like, okay, how many points was that? Is he winning? Is he losing? The guy's getting his ass kicked. You can see it right there as if you're watching a Street Fighter match. I think that's funny as shit. I think it's goddamn awesome, right? The gamification of sport, right? Taking our tools, our fun shit, health meters, right? How neat is that? And now I don't know if you're a Taekwondo purist, if you hate this or love this and think it's the worst thing for your sport. I have no idea. I just think this is funny as shit, right? And they're experimenting, right? This is not necessarily how they run every competition and every tournament, but what a neat way to kind of show the same information. Instead of just some judges, okay, that's 2 points, that eight, okay, red one, everyone can kind of see it, right? And they're using technology, these vests, to do that. I just thought that was a neat, really, really neat kind of, again, bringing our world to sport in a way, health bars and meters, and there's sound effects that go off when they're kicking and stuff. It's just really kind of a neat little thing I wanted to point out. Okay? And I also want to remember, I'm answering questions at the end of the show every week, going to try to answer some questions. So you've got to the end of the show, use DN Peak, our channel name, into chat, and we'll answer those. And as I was reminded, it's time for Q&A right now, Scott. See, this show's going really quick and fast, right? So, all right, so let's answer some questions. Give me just a second to pull it up. I did look at the few there during the break. All right, I got it right here. And again, as you get used to it, just always try to remember, we're going to try to always answer them. I got Tyler and crew in the control room who are trying to grab them and throw them to me, and then I'll decide what I want to answer. So let me look at them real quick. I'll make my own sound music. Oh yeah, Midway. If you don't know who Midway is, he's one of the founding guys of Gottfried. When we all got bought, he went with us to MLG. MLG bought us years ago. He went to MLG, obviously as one of the lion's share owners of the company. He made the lion's share of that buyout, which was great for him. It was his idea. Him and a small crew of guys when they were at RDW years ago. And, he took some time off. He left MLG before we all did. He now, I believe, it's been a while since I talked to Trevor. I believe, well, he did a couple things. So Dota Buff, there's a bunch of like the buff sites that do the stats. Dota Buff, I think there's a League Buff. There's a couple different kind of statistic-based sites where you can get deep dive into your game, right? Again, we had a big thing with Gottfried where we did stats, right? Much like you see on HLTV. I always want to say Half-Life TV. We did that stuff, right? So he took kind of that knowledge and some of those coders. They formed their own companies and they started doing it for other games where they could grab that API, parse the data, all that kind of stuff. So I know he still owns some of those, and I think he spins them up when it makes sense for a new game. But then he also, I believe he still works for ESL North America. I don't know in what capacity, but I believe he's still involved in ESL's operations in some regards. I'm not sure if it's sales or marketing or just operations. Last time I bumped into him a couple years ago at one of the Poland events. He was there. That's where I bumped into Craig. They were all together. Doing well. He married, couple kids, lives in the Pacific Northwest still. And he seems like he's doing great. So, yeah, that's what Trevor's up to. So let me get into this. Okay, so Drowlin asks, do not peak. What is Scoot's predictions for the next few years in the esports industry? Oh, boy. No easy answer to that. I mean, like, oof. Okay, my predictions would be, I do think we're in for a little bit of a investment correction, right? There's a big talk that maybe we're in a big-ass bubble and all these teams are overvalued. And all this money being spent, whether it's on Overwatch League or the other franchise leagues, or just the money in general, right? Like Cloud9 in the last Forbes valuation is somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million is their valuation, right? Now that doesn't mean if they sell right now, someone would pay that, but that's how you use that valuation to go get more money, more investment, right? So I think those might be a little inflated to no fault of anybody's, just it's this fear of missing out, and it's the hot new thing, and that often happens in hot new industries is things get a little overvalued because everyone's coming, right? And so since there's all this buzz, it must be worth all this stuff. But we already all know that the revenue of a team owner, a TO, all the different businesses in esports aren't really matching that valuation yet. It's a growth industry still in that sense. It's supposed to grow into those valuations in the sense of ROI to make up for what you're buying into and what you're spending. So I think we're going to see a little bit of correction. We've already seen it a little bit. Echo Fox literally closed, right, through all sorts of reasons. But again, maybe too much money spent, too high of a valuation. They had a whole lot of political infighting and all sorts of stuff with investors that happened between Rick Fox and the other investors. But again, all those investors basically just kind of walked away of that project. So, and we've seen teams come and go or lessen their exposure, lessen what divisions they're involved in. So I think we're going to see some correction in all that. I don't think the sky is falling. I don't think we're got a bubble that's going to pop and all of a sudden we're in a huge recession. But I think some investors that maybe didn't do their full due diligence on the entire industry might feel that their investment wasn't worthwhile. They'll pull back a little bit. And again, this is why I ranted so much about if these big franchise leagues fail, the ripple effect that it can bring us. So I think that's one thing, Drylin, was we're going to see maybe some correction, some lowering of expectations, so to speak. I definitely think, for Counter-Strike in general, we're going to see a lot of experimentation next year with these different leagues and how they're dealing with rev shares and how they get around Valve saying you can't really be exclusive. How will they get around that? Because obviously the more exclusive a product is, the more want there is for a product, the more you can sell to your advertisers and sponsors for that product, right? It's a hard thing to come by. It's worth more and more people will watch it, right? So I think for us, these next couple of years will be figuring out, what is the next set of things for Counter-Strike when it comes to these business models, right? The Player Association for Counter-Strike, very involved in all these things, right? That is brand new to esports in general. You've got a Player Association talking about collective bargaining agreements and making agreements and talking to team owners about collective bargaining, as well as image rights and how they work in sports versus esports. And so, we're growing up and changing Counter-Strike the next couple of years, right? We know what worked and got us here, but we need to get over here. And so, again, as I said, we're going to break some eggs to make a better cake, right? That's just Counter-Strike. And I think you're going to see a lot of experimentation with what tournament organizers do, what publishers decide to do. In that sense, publishers taking control of their leagues or third-partying their leagues. I think this experimentation mode is going to come now because we really have to test the waters because there's a lot more money that wants ROI back on it, right? So you can't just sit on your laurels. So a lot of that kind of stuff, right? I think we're going to see more mainstream acceptance in the sense that it's just a standard form of entertainment now, whether it's esports or just people gaming, right? I think the stigmas go away every day about this thing being something weird we do. My mom games. She's 90 years. She turns 90 in March. She games more than me now that I have a full-time job, right? So that will continue to happen. It'll just become a norm, just another thing, right? So I think that's really cool. Let's move on to the next question. For Scoots, one experiment, this is from Sonia Lowell. One experiment in the greater esports scene which hasn't been done yet, but you really want to see tried. Oh boy. Experiment. Esports on the moon. No. These aren't necessarily on a boat. Yeah, cruise ships on esports cruise ships. That's what I would personally love. I'd like to put Do Not Peek on a cruise ship, but Jason hates water. He hates ships. He hates boats. Landlocked.
Yeah. So I was asked to do that. Hold on, this is fucking with my head. Never mind. Keep going.
He's got an echo when he talks. They hear me on a speaker in the control room, so...
All right, let's try this again. Okay. I was asked to do that esports cruise thing. Fuck that.
Currently looking for a new managing director of Do Not Peek Entertainment. Please send all emails to me. All right. Experiment. I think I answered that above. I think in Counter-Strike, we're going to see a whole lot of experiments that haven't been tried yet. I don't know which ones are going to work, which ones won't, where the middle ground's going to be. But, I think that's one thing. I think the experiment that we're all waiting to see in a couple years is how these franchise leagues, not necessarily Riot's franchise leagues, but the ones that are moving home, right? Home stands, how those are attended. Not so much the first ones, but when it's a regular thing in these cities that there is an Overwatch team and they play and all the hoopla of it being a brand new thing, and that's going to take a couple years. That's when we see because that's the biggest experiment in esports right now happening. The amount of money invested in those two leagues from not only team owners, but also Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, that's huge. They're building multi-million-dollar facilities, some of these teams in their cities. That is such a huge experiment, but we're not going to have the answer for a couple years. The shine has to wear off the apple, and then we have to see, who shows up on a Friday to watch those matches, right? Everyone's going to show up this first year because it's the first big LAN events and big stadium events in these cities ever in some regard, right? So that's a big experiment. Nate Dog Double G says, is it true you're a well-done steak guy? Fuck you. God, I should have read that before.
That's an insult.
That's an insult to all red meat, period. Medium rare. Rare to medium rare, depending on the cut. And that is it. Anything past medium rare, I'm going to look at you sideways, right? And anything towards well done, you'll be lucky if the chef doesn't fuck with your steak at that point, right? So, yeah. I know you're trolling me, but that's funny. Yeah. So, all right. One more question. Do you believe prize pool increase is due for CSGO majors? Do you think it'll draw more viewers? How do you feel about the Dota crowdfunding model? Answer this one really quick. Counter-Strike players do get, tier one, we're talking about prize money, they do get paid really well, right? So I think the general conversation about prize money, I think, is in a good place, right? I think you have to look at each game in a vacuum, right? And I think the amount of prize money these guys win for a week of tournaments is really good. Now, your question was about the majors. Yes, I think the majors themselves, we need to figure out a way to do a little bit of crowdfunding ourselves again, because again, remember we had cases before, or get Valve involved, because we already know that is the pinnacle of our game twice a year in regards to competition, right? But it's no longer the pinnacle for prize purse. Now, I don't want $30 million. I don't want the international, because that'll break the entire ecosystem of the game for the year, right? But it would be nice if it was also the biggest prize purse every year, even if it was just $500,000 more than the ESLs and the other events that are giving away big money, right? That would be great. But, who knows? I love the fact that we've got them in good places in the calendar now, so we'll get good Counter-Strike out of these two events. But yeah, that would be nice if it really was kind of our greatest event in all the different boxes were checked for that prize money, competition level, all that stuff. So hopefully we'll get there. Valve is Valve, though. Dota and Counter-Strike might as well be made by two different game developers, right? Really, really should. So now my last topic we're going to wrap up with. We're almost done with the show. And I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to do what I did last week, but we're going to talk about Rush a little bit. Rush is my favorite band. If you follow me on Twitter, you know this. I am a prolific tweeter of song lyrics anyway. Yes, I'm a 14-year-old girl. I tweet song lyrics, right? Rush is my favorite band. Always has been, always will be. It is a band that me and my brother bonded over. I'm the youngest son of 3 sons. My middle brother, Kurt, and I were the closest. He's about 2 years older than me. So I was that typical younger brother, right? He hated my fucking guts, right? I was always trying to get him in trouble because he wouldn't let me hang out with him, as we were younger kids. And then, so when I started high school, he was getting out of high school, right? And my music influence in general, I owe all to my brother, right? My older brother, about 8 years older, more into Southern rock, Leonard Skinner, Molly Hatchet, that kind of stuff. Allman Brothers also influenced. Kurt was into that stuff too. But my music taste is straight from my brother because I would steal his records, get in trouble, but then I was all able to borrow his records. And then it turned into hey, Scott, listen to this fucking shit, right? He turned me on to not only Rush, but his favorite band is Black Sabbath, right? So all the grades, Rush, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, The Who, The Doors, Hendrix. Like, he's kind of more of a hard rock kind of guy. But then all through his life, as he changed his taste, hey, Scott, listen to this. Oingo Boingo for the first time from my brother, right? Fast forward a little longer. NWA, Public Enemy, like all this shit, right? I'm listening to fucking the Joshua Tree. I like U2, especially old U2. I'm listening to the J Tree, and Kurt's like, listen to fucking this. And he hands me Public Enemy, right? What the fuck is this I'm listening to, brother, right? So like and Kurt and I have talked about this over the years. Like, we bonded over music. We got through all our differences over music. And Rush, my first Rush show, Kurt took me to, Moving Pictures tour. My last Rush show I went to, for Kurt's birthday, I took him to see the Rush 40 tour, their last tour they did several years ago, right? And so through music, we got through our fucking sibling bullshit. And still to this day, like, he is like a muse for me when it comes to music. All genres, all sorts of stuff. Fugazi, Ministry, you name it. So Moving Pictures, obviously that was up there. And the reason, like, if you don't know why I'm fucking talking about Rush, Niel Peart died this last week, right? The drummer of Rush, known as the Professor to the world. A phenomenal drummer, phenomenal lyricist. He wrote almost all the lyrics for Rush songs, not all of them, but a good chunk of the songs you know and love, especially off of that album, Moving Pictures, he wrote, right? So not just a badass drummer. And I know that Rush is an acquired taste. I've known this from day one. It's nerdy rock, like us nerdy types liked Rush, and the hardcore guys liked AC/DC, and Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath. I like them all. But something about Rush always stuck with me, whether it's some of his lyrics about kind of being an isolated kid, like just listen to Subdivisions. It's all about a kid growing up and not feeling like he belongs in any clique in high school, and what you have to do to be cool and all that kind of shit. And he passed away from brain cancer this week, right? Kept it a secret. They retired because his body fell apart, right? He's a hardcore fucking drummer, right? And over the years, arthritis, tendon issues, you name it, he was done. That's why they retired. That's why they stopped touring, was him. For all the right reasons, right? Literally, his body was falling apart. But we all hoped maybe they'll make another album. Maybe they'll do appearances here and here, here and there, right? But the fact, I got to see the last show. My very first concert ever was it, and all bonded with my brother. So this one hit me pretty hard, right? Normally, when a celebrity dies, if I liked their movies or they're an athlete and I liked, the team they played on, it is a bummer for all of us, right? But I think when a musician dies and it's somebody that, you kind of bonded with their music, because again, music gets us through everything, right? Yeah, you might have some favorite movies, but music, you listen to music when you're sad, listen to music when you're happy, it gets you through everything in life, music, right? If you're into music. Some people don't listen to music at all. And Rush is that for me, right? And so this one sucked, right? None of us knew he had brain cancer. He kept it secret. I guess he's had it for about 3.5 years. And so it came out of the blue. When you know someone has cancer, it's one thing, because, you're like, okay, what kind of cancer? What kind of treatments? Oh, okay, brain cancer. So I think it hit a lot of us really hard, right? My brother and I. And there's only been a couple other artists that hit me like that. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Tom Petty, and now Niel. And again, I know Rush is an acquired band, right? Geddy Lee is ugly. His voice sounds like a screeching girl. Him and Steven Tyler could have a contest for the ugliest frontman in rock and roll. But their music, 3 guys, 40 years of music, that catalog of music. And again, they started more rock and slowly moved into be the preeminent prog rock band, right? You get past Moving Pictures into some of those other albums, they even get more into prog, right? And again, just hit me hard. And the quote that stuck with me that you hear all the time is, you might not like Rush, but your favorite drummer for your favorite band, his favorite drummer is Niel Peart, right? He inspired generations of drummers around the world, always learning, always changing what he did. And it's kind of funny, I went and was rewatching some interviews. And Moving Pictures, we showed that. Their biggest album, right? Came out when I was a sophomore in high school, right? That's the tour I saw as well. I mean, obviously now everybody knows Tom Sawyer. Like, the opening licks of Tom Sawyer are legendary. If you know no other Rush song, you know Tom Sawyer. And it was kind of funny because he has an interview where the interviewer walks him through every song on this album because it is their most popular album. They made this album in particular to be every song to be able to be played live. Because some of their earlier albums, they experimented with orchestration and all sorts of crazy shit. Not so easy to do live. They didn't play 2112 live for years because it's a much harder album to reproduce live. This one they obviously always played live, and then it became such a popular album, they had to always play it live. Niel says that Tom Sawyer is the hardest song for him to play because if you go listen to it after the show, every goddamn drum beat is hard. No like, it's just like, boom, 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 boom. Just insanely hard for him to play, timing-wise, strength-wise, and it becomes your anthem. You're playing it at every live show for 40 years. And Rush was a prolific touring band. They toured all the goddamn time. It's why there's so many of us that are fans. You could see them live almost every year. And they also did a really, really good job of documenting their tours. DVDs, behind-the-scenes stuff, like thank God that they made this catalog of content that you can go watch right now on Netflix. Beyond the Gilded Stage is a great documentary, came out in 2010, right? And they did that all their career, right? So Niel's no longer with us, but Niel will always be with us. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. I love that band. I love him. I'm not a drummer, but like his expertise, again, there's a reason why everybody in the industry and all drummers bow to him and call him the professor, right? Whether it's jazz, rock, the man was a fucking beast. So anyway, rest in peace, Niel. Shout outs to you and your family, like he's gonna watch. And my favorite line, and it didn't really dawn on me till the StarCraft 2 days, and I had a little bit of popularity because of Evil Geniuses. Living in the camera eye, caught in the fisheye lens, I cannot pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend. And Niel himself, very shy growing up, not an outspoken guy. Geddy and Alex were the front men of the band when it came to interviews. And that whole song, Limelight, is about how he was trying to deal with the fame. You know, they had an album before. Permanent Waves was kind of their first kind of big set of hits, radio-wise, Spirit of Radio, etc. And that was his way of saying, basically, look, I can't pretend that you and I are mates because you come up to me and go, Niel, I love your work. You're the greatest guy. And he's so shy, not egotistical, just like, didn't know how to respond to that side of fame. None of these guys wanted to be rock stars, right? They're musicians that happened to become rock stars. And that, I noticed that during the StarCraft 2 days because watching our pros interact and watching me interact, some were very shy and like, yes, thank you very much. I'm glad you watched me. And I'll talk to anybody. But it really dawned on me like what that lyric meant. Like I can't fake that because you know everything about me because you've seen me on interviews and all that stuff that I know you. Right, and I'm not gonna fucking pretend, right? So just awesome drummer. Go listen to his stuff. Yeah, and just he will be missed, right? So that's my shout out to Rush. Changed my life. Very formative band for me. We all have them. So yeah, that's it. Thank you again, Rush, for being so badass. And Niel, you are phenomenal. You will live on. Thank God to YouTube and DVDs. Now, last plug of the day. Talked about it last week. Going to end the show in a minute with a Juked video. Ben did get with us, got us a nice little video. He's going to walk you through what Juked.gg is all about. It is a TV guide of all sorts of esports content, but I'll kind of do the wrap of my show before that. But again, you're watching The Breakdown. Will be episode 3 next week. Thank you so much for watching. Again, it'll be up on YouTube as soon as we can get it up there. Obviously, it's also a Twitch VOD. Much obliged to you watching. Give us your constructive criticism, what you liked, what you didn't like, and we will see you back here next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel.
What is up? It's Fishsticks, the co-founder and CEO of Juked.gg. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the product is all about and maybe try and sell you on why you should use it to watch esports in the future. All right, let's jump right into this demo. Okay, so this is the Juked front page where we're going to aggregate every single live esports event happening across the ecosystem. We're already actually supporting 25 plus esports games today, which I believe is more than any other product or service out there. So no matter what you're interested in, hopefully, for the most part, we're going to have it on Juked. So this is a demo of everything that's happening live right now. It's a little bit of a quiet weekend as we are really early in the year. Definitely expect things to pick up soon though. So on this front page, you can see everything that's live, and if something's interesting to you, it's the Bukovel minor, for Dota 2. So you can click in here, and you'll instantly see not just the stream, not just the chat that you would expect on Twitch, but also you're going to get additional context. So you're going to see it's an upper bracket semifinal, RNG versus Nigma, best of 3, and you can go and click to see those brackets. No more tracking down brackets on a third-party website. We're going to have the brackets embedded directly on Juked every single time. If you continue to scroll down, you're going to see the rest of the schedule as well. So you can see later in the day, we've got this other upper bracket final, and you can set a reminder for that. Lower bracket final here, and then of course the grand finals. Don't want to miss that, so I'm going to set a reminder for that as well. Back on the front page, you can continue to scroll down, see featured VODs that have been happening recently. Another shot of what's coming up in the future. You can see I've set some reminders already for some of the speedrunning events happening later today and awesome games done quick. And then another thing that you can do here with Juked is curate the experience to your preferences. So I cleared all my preferences just to give you guys a quick demo, but you can set your favorite games right here. So if all you really want to see is Counter-Strike, Street Fighter, Quake, I'm just pulling this out of nowhere, but let's say you want to see some OSU, you can go ahead and curate this, and you'll see that it actually curates the top bar by your favorite games. It's also going to weight those streams in those games a little bit higher than they would have been weighted otherwise. And of course, if you are only interested in watching Counter-Strike, you can click this Counter-Strike directory and easily find everything you need. So here are all the recent VODs that have happened. Here's everything that's coming up in the near future. I also really want to quickly show you guys the calendar system. So if you're on the calendar all page, you're going to see what we think is a really, really unique, really, really awesome view of what's happening across the ecosystem. I don't think anyone else has a calendar as robust and as detailed as we have. So you can, of course, see everything. Of course, there's so much going on every single weekend. You can set reminders here from this view as well. See the prize pool and information about the tournament here. But you can also actually curate this by your favorite games. So if you remember earlier, I set my preferences, my favorites, and you can easily curate this calendar by all of your favorites. And pretty much that's what we've built so far in the Juked beta. We just launched in November. A lot coming through the pipeline, so we'd love it if you checked out the product. We'd love it if you created an account and set up your profile favorites. We've also got a weekly newsletter, which I write myself, and I think it does a pretty good job of giving you an overview of what's happening in esports. That's pretty much it. I will end the demo here. Thanks again to Scott for letting me show juked.gg off to you guys. We really do hope you give it a shot. We're doing everything we can to help grow this ecosystem, and I think this is a big part of it, making it easier to discover and watch esports. Thank you. Bye-bye.